Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out this 12 volt 320 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery from GoKWH. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what's inside. Alright, when you first open your battery, what you'll see is styrofoam on the top. It does look like this battery is well protected. In the middle, you'll find your two post bolts right here. Yeah, and this battery is completely encased in styrofoam, so the packaging and the shipping is very well done. Okay, well I just unpackaged the GoKWH 12 volt 320 amp hour battery, and this is all you get. You get your battery, which is the main reason you're buying this package. And you get your two post bolts, which are looks like to be about a ½ inch of threads. So you're probably going to only be able to handle one set of conductors. You're not going to be able to stack conductors on here with these post bolts. And also I noticed that they don't come with post bolt covers. So you have to keep that in mind when purchasing this battery. It also doesn't come with a manual. So we have no idea right out of the box if it's a 100 amp hour BMS, a 200 amp hour, or 150 BMS. We don't know if it has high or low temp charging protections, anything like that. We are assuming that it is a 320 amp hour, 200 amp BMS, but I'm guessing that we'll have to click on, maybe a QR code that's on here somewhere to find out more information, or the information might be on the battery itself. All right, when looking at the front of the battery, it does tell you a fair amount of information, but it does say 12.8 volt, 320 amp hour, so that equates to 4,096 watt hours of potential energy in here. It does have app monitoring, so it is a Bluetooth battery. On the side right here, it does have the downloading the GoKWH app for your Google Play or your App Store, depending on what kind of phone you have. And there is a QR code right here to access the user's manual. The other side is the exact same as the other. And then we also have our serial number and our Bluetooth signature right here. So all in all, very simple so far. Just like with any LiFePO4 battery, you want to check the state of charge at the terminals to see if it is active and to see if it was actually shipped at a comfortable voltage rate, which should be around 50%, which I would like to see about, 13 volts, maybe 13.1, something like that. So let's go ahead and check that now. All right, let's take these protective covers off and check the voltage, see what we have. Oh, look at that, 13.15. That is exactly where you want your battery, no matter what the amperage. That's where you want your 12.8 volt battery at, is about 13.1. That is a very nice voltage. That means it's probably around 50%, and that's perfect. Next, let's get the measurements and the weight of this battery. All right, the length of this battery, including the handles, is right around 16 inches. The height of the battery is a little under 11. I would say it's about 10 3/4 inches. And the depth is right at 8 inches. So that is a pretty small form factor for a 320 amp hour battery. And when it comes to the weight, we are looking at 55.1 pounds. Again, not terrible. Since you got to think a 100 amp hour 12.8 volt lithium iron phosphate battery usually weighs about 21 to 23 pounds. So this being 55 pounds with over triple the capacity, supposedly, is pretty good. But now what we're going to do is actually check the capacity. So I'm going to go ahead and charge this up all the way and then do a discharge test to make sure that we're getting the capacity that we paid for. All right, well, the capacity test is done for this GoKWH 12.8 volt 320 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So let's go ahead and check it out. All right, you can see that the blue line is the voltage, and at the first 5% of the test, it was still at 13 volts. And if we go all the way over to the 95th percentile of the test, it's at 12.34 volts. And so that's what I love about lithium iron phosphate batteries. The voltage curve discharge is so flat. You're talking about going from 13 to 12.3 in basically 90% of this battery. But what was the total capacity of the battery? Well, down here we can see that the capacity was 320.3 amp hours. So they barely squeaked by. And that concerns me because I was more expecting it to be around 330, 335 amp hours. But that also could be that the cells inside just weren't balanced very well. And as you use the battery, those balanced cells might get better, giving you that additional amp hours that you're kind of expecting. But overall, it did pass the capacity test. So let's go ahead and put it back on the bench and do some high amperage testing. You can see here is my setup. Here is the GoKWH 320 amp hour battery. We have our timer right here because we're going to be doing a 5-minute test first with 200 amps. We have an amp clamp, and we will also be using the app that comes with the battery. We have 2 inverters connected to it. One is a 2000 watt, one is a 3000 watt. And then we have a 500 watt heater, a 1200 watt heat gun, a 1000 watt Elite Gourmet cooktop, and a 1500 watt heater. So we'll be turning all of these on to see if we can max out that battery. So let's begin. Let's go ahead and start and try to get up to about 200 amps. So we'll go ahead and hit start on the timer. We'll turn on this 500 watt heater. And this heat gun on full blast. And we are doing about 160 amps right now. So let's go ahead and turn off the heater and turn on the Elite Gourmet. Now we got 2200 watts, and that gives us right at our 200 amps. So let's go ahead and run that for 5 minutes, and I'll get right back with you. All right, well, it's actually been 5 minutes and 30 seconds, and this battery has handled 2200 watts pretty easily. But 2200 watts really isn't 200 amps. That's why I'm getting kind of confused here, because this shows 200 amps, but the app only shows 157 amps. The voltage reads 12.36, but on the app it's reading 12.75. If I multiply out the voltage of the battery to the amps, it's saying about 2450 watts, which I would say that's a little bit closer, because you got to think about the inefficiencies of these 2 inverters. So they're pumping out 2200 watts plus the inefficiencies of 80 or 90%. So 2450 watts kind of makes a lot more sense than less than 2000 watts that we got going on the app right there. So I think there might be something odd going on with the app. All right, but I'm going to start cranking it up and see what happens. So let's first turn this heater on. Now we're up to 260 amps. And this shows right around 200 amps. 2500 watts, 12.6 volts. But when I test the voltage, I'm getting 12.15. And this is still saying 12.65. So that's kind of a big discrepancy. But my meter has never never driven me wrong about the amperage on this clamp meter. So I'm gonna go with the clamp meter, and we're gonna go ahead and start up that heater over there, and we're gonna run it, I think at around 600 to 900 watts, and we're gonna climb it over 300 amps. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, and the battery just shut off. So it says we have a MOSFET over temperature alarm right there. All right, well the battery, it reset, which is nice. It reset after about 30 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and run the same thing, try to get it up to 200 amps again, just to make sure that it can run it. Because it gave me an over temperature alarm, but it seemed like it shut off really fast as soon as I put on that additional, low setting on there, which I think is 900 watts. All right, so we're back up to 200 amps. The app says 154 amps at 12.8 volts. So instead of having this heater on, let's go ahead and turn this heater on. And yeah, and it immediately shut off again. And I had it on high. So I kind of want to know where it's shutting off at. I'm going to go ahead and set my amp clamp to max amperage, and we're going to try to capture that. All right, so here we go again. Let's turn this on. And now let's go ahead and turn on this heater on high. So it could run 260 amps just fine, but once it reached over 300, probably 350, that's when it shut off. And I will take that, because a lot of these batteries, they have over temperature protection, but they don't have over amperage protection. And what's going on here is it's not over temperature protection, it's actually over amperage protection. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take this battery apart to see what's on the inside. If I'm correct, it looks like there's little screw holes on the top of this. So hopefully it's not glued and screwed. Hopefully it's just screwed down. But I'm gonna try to pop this top off, and so we can see the cells and the BMS and the wiring. Oh, there's a Phillips screw in there. That's good. All right, let's see if this just pops right off. Oh, look at that, beautiful. All right, and here is what the inside of the GoKWH 320 amp hour battery looks like. And at first glance, I'm actually pretty happy about how it looks. It's very clean. You can see that there are expansion and contraction humps on the bus bars. Everything is bolted down. I don't see any quality control marks, but that's all right. The pressure relief valves are all open, so we don't have to worry about them being covered. The balance leads look very clean. Everything is taped down. There is a fiber board between each of the cells, and there is padding on the outsides of the cells as well. When it comes to the cabling, there is a pair of 6-gauge negative wires, and it looks like there is a pair of 6-gauge going from the negative last cell to the BMS. And then the positive wire is a 4-gauge wire. I mean, and usually I would say you would not want to run 200 amps through a 4-gauge wire, but look how short this is. They did a good job of making sure that it's not very long. It's only about 6 inches. So I think that will be okay. And after doing all that testing with 200 amps for 5 minutes, none of these cables, none of them are warm. So that's really good to feel that there's no heat on these. The only places that it is a little warm is right at the terminal. I do wish that these were glued down also, but that's just a minor gripe. As long as they're nice and tight, everything is fine. You can see that the BMS is on the side. The QR codes are easily visible. I'll go ahead and get a scan on that and see what I can find. All right, I just scanned this middle cell right here, and here is what came up. It says the manufacturer is Envision. I've never heard of that cell manufacturer before. It doesn't know the capacity or the energy. It says the production date was 7/22 of 2024, so these batteries are about almost about a year and a half old, a little over a year and a half, a year and 9 months. But at least it gives me the manufacturer and the cell type. All right, I got the battery out of the case, and here is a look at the BMS. It doesn't really tell us anything. I'll just have to flip this over, but it shows, it says 2030 200 amp, so it's a 200 amp BMS. And I do see that there is one temperature sensor right here, and it goes right into the middle of the cells, but it's taped down, but the end of it's not really, it's just kind of floating there, which is probably close enough to the cells. I mean, it really should be like taped right down to it. But I'm gonna go ahead and put an ice pack on here and see if it triggers. All right, you can see that we're charging with a couple of amps right now. So let's go ahead and try to get this to cause a low temperature charging protection. All right, there we go. Perfect. Cold temperature charging protection did trigger. Let's warm it back up. And we're charging again. Perfect. All right, so what do I think of the 320 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery from GoKWH? I'm impressed. I think it's a good buy. I do like the fact that it passed all of my tests. It passed the capacity test just barely, but it does pass the high amperage test. It stopped out at about 350 amps. It also has cold temperature charging protection, which is always a plus. I was able to take the pack out of the case just by unscrewing it, and the build quality is pretty good. There's nothing wrong with this build quality. You know, it has the compression straps, it has the expansion humps on the bus bars. I feel like the wiring is fine for the amount of amperage that it needs to pull, and all of the cells are separated by fiberboard. So all looks very good on the build. The one thing I am a little concerned about is the app. Even though it does give you information, I'm not really sure how accurate that information is. It was a pretty big discrepancy between what the app said and what my meters said. And I tried it on 2 different meters, and they both said the same thing. And they were up to 50 amps difference from the app to what my actual clamp meter said. So the app is the one thing that's of concern with this battery. But if you don't care about apps, I would say this is a solid build. If you have any questions about the GoKWH 320 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, please go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll have a link to this item in my description, just in case you want to look further into it. Thanks again for watching this video, and have a great day. Bye-bye.